We are often comforted by the idea that our beliefs are the product of careful examination and logical reasoning, so we cling desperately to these beliefs that separate us from our seemingly ignorant counterparts. Alan Watts, a famous interpreter of Eastern philosophy, advised his readers against clutching to any one belief by deeming this act of commitment an intellectual suicide that closes the mind to any new vision of the world. As we explained in our previous video, human sensation and perception have their own inherent physiological limitations, and it is with these flawed processes that we humans develop our understanding of the world. Thus, when approaching any discussion, it is crucial to remember that you could very well be wrong. At the basis of our lives' understanding lies the neural circuitry in our brains that's composed of approximately 86 billion neurons that communicate with one another through the passage of electrical and chemical signals. These neural pathways are strengthened through repetition, and the more frequently the same neurons communicate, the faster the message is transmitted and the more that pathway is reinforced. Years of reinforcement make it more difficult to alter the beliefs of an elderly person than those of an adolescent. It is likely that even if we attempt our absolute best at changing someone's mind, we'll be met with failure and resistance. We must then remember that our goal is not to convince the other person into adopting our position, but to get them to slowly convince themselves. In the 1970s, Dr. Frank Wesley, a former psychology professor at Portland State University, discovered that US prisoners of war defected to North Korea during the Korean War as a result of the kindness they were shown by North Koreans. Mostly coming from one US training camp, the defectors were taught that North Koreans are cruel and barbaric. However, they soon abandoned this inculcation upon receiving kindness from their captors. Wesley also concluded that these prisoners were more likely to defect than other prisoners who either received neutral accounts from North Koreans or hadn't been told anything at all. Similarly, in a conversation, both parties can stand to gain more from one another after establishing mutual rapport. Rather than spewing condescending phrases that tell your conversation partner that you view them as intractably stupid, you must demonstrate intellectual honesty by genuinely trying to understand how they've come to adopt their beliefs, instead of immediately attempting to destroy them in a heated debate. Allow your partner to explain their reasoning, but refrain from shooting your stance at them in return. Instead, early on in the conversation, use Rappaport's rules, a set of rules named after game theorist Anatole Rappaport that was intended to encourage productive discourse. First, attempt to re-express your partner's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your partner replies, "Damn, I wish I've thought of stating it that way myself." This will help you prevent from attacking a straw man, or in other words, refuting an argument that was never actually presented by your partner as a result of your own misinterpretation. Second, list any points that you and your partner can agree on, and finally, mention anything you've learned from your partner. Only now are you permitted to say as much of a word of rebuttal, because you've demonstrated that your goal is not to establish a winner and a loser, but rather to enhance both of your understandings. Contrary to what we may believe, bombarding a person with facts is not the most compelling strategy to change their mind and can even sometimes intensify their pre-held beliefs. This is because humans are known to reject the ideas they're provided during the process of accepting ideas they believe to be self-generated. In his 1940 research, the renowned psychologist Kurt Lewin showed that informative lectures were effective at prompting individuals to change their habits only 3% of the time, while behavior changes occurred 37% of the time with individuals who were encouraged to discuss the issues themselves. So instead of delivering facts immediately after you've utilized Rappaport's rules, attempt to instill doubt in your conversation partner so that they can slowly begin to change their own mind. Unless you've previously studied the topic, if you were asked to provide a detailed explanation of how the internet works, you most likely would fail to give the appropriate response. This is called the unread library effect. Rather than taking our time to read every single book in the library, most of us are complacent knowing that we have access to this library at any given time. By utilizing the unread library effect, you can instill doubt in your conversation partner by asking them to unveil their own ignorance rather than arguing over the accuracy of certain facts. This means explicitly encouraging further explanations, requesting more specifics, and asking follow-up questions that get your partner to reveal how they've come to adopt their beliefs. In many cases, this tactic magnifies the fragility of the beliefs themselves. To further increase your partner's doubt, ask them to place their belief on a scale. Ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being no confidence and 10 being absolute confidence, how confident are you that your belief is true? For example, if your partner replies with, "I'd say 7," Then ask them, out of mere curiosity, why didn't you place it at an 8 or a 9? This question will prompt your partner to find reasons that go against their own argument. This scaling method can be coupled with disconfirmation, which means figuring out under which conditions your partner would be willing to revise their beliefs. An example of disconfirmation would be asking, what if the results of this study that you're referencing could not be replicated? Would you then be willing to reconsider your stance? If you are speaking to someone that is reasonable, they will admit that they could be wrong and might even specify an angle you could take to change their mind. However, intellectual honesty is not a trait found amongst all people, so your partner could reply with, there is absolutely nothing that would convince me that I'm wrong. The paradoxical nature of this response reveals itself once you realize that they're stating their position as an immutable truth while simultaneously admitting that they know the evidence doesn't justify their beliefs. Now you have the option of pointing out how they contradicted themselves. If you realize you're speaking to an unreasonable person, ask them something along the lines of, do you think every reasonable person would be able to come to your conclusion? If their response is yes, tell them that you would consider yourself a reasonable person, yet you're having trouble reaching the same conclusion. Then ask, how would I get there? When dealing with people who hold extreme values, it is important to keep in mind that deeply held beliefs often have more to do with identity than the truth. When you challenge people's values and identity beliefs, you're signaling a threat to these stubborn beliefs in the same way you might signal a threat to their physical safety. A 2016 study from the University of Southern California found that challenges to political beliefs increased activity in the brain's default mode network, a set of interconnected structures that are associated with disengagement from externalities and self-representation. To the human brain, telling someone their political beliefs are incorrect produces a similar effect to a literal slap in the face. If you still wish to sway their position, redirect the conversation away from the accuracy of their beliefs to how these beliefs may be intricately tied to their sense of identity. You may want to ask something like, this seems really important to you. What are you basing these beliefs on? Why do you think your disconfirmation for this particular belief is much higher opposed to other beliefs? By this point in time, you should have a clear understanding of your partner's stance on a topic, and hopefully you've convinced them to understand or even embrace your stance. If you've tried all of these strategies and still find that your conversation partner is not budging in the slightest, perhaps it is possible that it is you who has not been intellectually honest and open, and it is time for you to reassess your own beliefs. Always remember that strict adherence is more harmful than it is helpful. Keep an open mind and be respectful to others, especially when your goal is to change someone else's mind. Which method or combination of methods do you plan on using first? If you've used any of these strategies, let us know in the comments how the interaction went. If you liked our video, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe for more content so you can check out more videos. Thanks for watching.